Hello and welcome to the Post-Tavares podcast. It is podcast number 49. I am on location in Frederick, New Brunswick, joined here with Jason. Jason, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
We were supposed to have a third member here for this, but unfortunately they could not make it, so we're going to two-man this.
Yep.
And yesterday was an interesting day for us because, we went for a little drive last night because we were going to go to the movies because power was flickering here and stuff. It was pretty hard to watch hockey. And the theater was on the other side of the city, and we saw some bright lights flashing in the sky, and I'm not talking about police or fire lights. I'm talking about transformers exploding literally all over the city in the distance and some kind of close by, and there were some orange and some teal or aqua lights and some flickering. It was a pretty crazy day yesterday here because, for those of you who don't know, we got a huge wind and rainstorm. And it knocked out power to like 85,000 in New Brunswick or something.
We're very lucky we're actually recording this right now. We're one of the few, I'd say, in the city with power right now.
Yeah, literally, probably 80% or higher in the city don't have power, and we do. So.
Yeah, I think when I checked, it was like 100,000 people in the province that were out, like not people, but individual places. So yeah. It's widespread. It's all over the place. So it was pretty bad.
Yeah, we're lucky actually to have power to film this podcast. Yeah. It almost didn't happen, which would have really screwed up the week for Post to Post because I don't have any other time to film anything. Mm-hmm. So after this is over, I have a 4-hour drive home and going to edit the podcast as soon as I go home and get it released. So you guys will see this on the day that we film it, luckily. And it wasn't scary. No. It was just spooky driving through parts of the city that had no power. It was like
just darkness everywhere.
It's just darkness everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because of that, those on Discord who rely on the bot for updates and predictions.
I think we're going to get into that later.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little later, but...
I kept trying to update them, and then I ended up having to take it down last night because, I don't know, it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I had a power outage, and it actually killed the bot. I had a hardware failure, so that was a nightmare, and I didn't want to deal with that again, so I decided started flickering last night when we were getting ready to go to bed.
Exactly.
And I just said, no, I'm not dealing with this again, so I took it off for about 8 hours. So, yeah, it was a storm for sure. And
for those of you who don't know who Jason is, because he's not on the channel very much anymore, he joined me for quite a bit of videos back in the day when the channel first started, and then when the podcast first started, he was the host actually. Yep. And then I moved away, and he never really.
It's kind of unfortunate because the whole idea of the podcast when I first kind of was talking to you about it was, I'm going to do it at my house. So it's one thing you don't have to do at your house.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it ready. I said I'm going to print out all the sheets. I'll have all the topics ready. All you have to do is show up and talk about it. I'm going to do all the editing and I'm going to do all the hosting. It's nothing. You just have to show up for a couple hours, and then now it's just more work on you again. Yeah, so it didn't really end up in the long run. Didn't really working out, but
no,
it's good that it's still going for sure.
It is good. Yeah, I have a lot of fun doing it. But now you basically run our Discord, and you've created that bot from scratch. We talked a little bit about that in a video not too long ago, Dad and I. But yeah, we'll get into the bot a little bit later. We've got some stuff to talk about there. But speaking of getting things ready, I see some papers in front of you there on the desk.
Yeah.
I think those are from podcast number 1.
So I'm going to let you take these home when you leave. But I mentioned this in a little video that probably about 50 people seen. It was only available to people in the Discord. I came down here to film a video for it. But these are, I'll let you show one of them if you want. For people that are listening, you obviously can't see that. But these are the episode 1 and episode 3, I guess, notes for the page. Or
Week in Review.
It has topics on it, and it's funny. We were going through this when we were setting things up last night. We were re-asking some of the questions or some of the topics we had here. Some of them have answers, some of them do not, which is funny because it's a year and a half old now, basically. But
it's Week in Review, and then the next topic is what do the Washington Capitals do now?
Yeah,
because this was the first podcast after they got eliminated by Pittsburgh.
That's
I
right.
think in that playoffs.
And then the next year they end up winning everything.
Yeah. Would you fire head coach Barry Trotz? Heck no.
What is goaltender interference?
Yeah, what is goaltender interference? That issue still has not been solved, I don't think.
Yeah.
John Tavares contract situation.
It's just funny looking back on it now.
NHL concussion protocol. Yeah, it's pretty nostalgic to look back, and because I remember doing that. Podcast.
Yep.
I don't remember what was said in the podcast,
no,
but I remember being excited for it because we were doing it and stuff. So as far as this podcast is concerned, we've got lots to talk about. Probably going to be a little bit shorter than we initially intended because we're down a body here, but we'll give this a shot. I wanted to quickly talk about one game that happened Thursday night, and that was the Montreal-Washington game. This I don't think you watched it because you're doing stuff. But Montreal was ahead in this game 3-1 at one point, and Washington came back and tied it, and then went ahead and took the lead 4-3. It's late in the third. Montreal ties it 4-4, and then they score again, and then they score again. It was a really, really good game as a general hockey fan, not just a Canadiens fan. I felt bad for Washington though because they did play a good game, but that was the game Thursday night that I thought was the best. That sounds a little bit biased because I'm a Canadiens fan, but Friday night's game, and we watched the highlights of this, and did we watch some of the game as well? I feel like we did.
I think we did, yeah.
But we have so much hockey going on. Colorado 6, Vancouver 7.
Mm-hmm.
This was the craziest game. It went back and forth. I don't think a team had a two goal lead in this game. It was 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3-3. It was crazy, and then that it ended in OT. There, it was just an awesome game. I hope you guys got a chance to watch that one. Now Saturday, as far as last night, most of the games happened last night, but there was a game on in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
We watched the majority of this game, and that was the Buffalo-Ottawa game. 9-2.
That's rough.
What's going on?
That's tough.
I think it was like 6-1 in the first period or something like that. Anderson was pulled after three goals, and then the backup goalie lets in.
So I asked
6.
you that. I asked you this at the time, but I'll ask you again on the podcast. What is your opinion of should teams slow down once they're so far ahead? And you gave me an answer. I'll give you time to explain that now and see if people agree with you.
Yeah, I said no. I don't think you should stop. Like, I don't think you should
agree.
stop your game plan. You should keep scoring and keep going and stuff, but tone down the celebrations.
That's right.
If you're up to 7 or 8 goals, you don't need to celebrate. And Buffalo was being pretty respectful in that game for the most part. So they did it right, and that's how Detroit won all those cups around the late 90s and early 2000s. They'd get out to leads, and then instead of switching their game and trying to play defensive and protect the lead, they just keep scoring. It was awesome. Montreal does not do that. Whenever they get in a lead, they protect it, and then they lose it. It's like classic Montreal, and they've never changed their strategy in the last 20 years. It's really frustrating. But that was a great game. Next game that happened was the Montreal-Tampa Bay game. Tampa Bay won 4-1. Carey Price looked really soft, led in some pretty weak goals there. But on the other end, Vasilevsky made some unbelievable saves because Montreal was just onslaughting them in the first period. And Vasilevsky totally kept them in the game. The Edmonton-Detroit game, 4-3 for Edmonton. Koskinen was great. He got another win. He's undefeated this year.
Yep.
That's exactly what Edmonton needed, is consistent goaltending, not just from your starter, but from your backup as well.
And it could have easily been a 4-2 game because that one shot that went off the backboards and kind of came in and crept in by his skate or pad and kind of went. It was kind of just an unlucky goal. He played really well, I thought. Yeah,
that was a really strange goal. There was a couple of kind of strange goals last night. The St. Louis Minnesota game. This was a terrible game on St. Louis's part. On St. Louis's part. Minnesota was 5. St. Louis was 1. Shots were 45-16 for Minnesota. Unacceptable.
I think they had 4 shots at the end of the first.
Yeah, and 9 shots at the end of the second.
That's unacceptable.
And Jake Allen did let in some soft goals, but you can't blame him. He made 40 saves in the game.
Yeah.
You can't blame him for losing the game when you're only getting 16 shots.
And that's pretty tough, yeah.
Like, that's unacceptable. This brings up the question. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but let's discuss it. Do you think Jake Allen gets traded?
I think Jake Allen might be in trouble in there. Yeah.
I think so, too.
And I like Jake Allen. Just location bias, probably.
Location bias. He's from Fredericton, yeah.
He's rocking the flag. Like, I think there's too much chatter. There's just too much chatter.
Where does he go?
I don't know. Who wants him?
Ottawa.
Maybe.
I just said that they don't want him. I've never heard that rumor, but because there's rumors about Anderson leaving Ottawa. We'll get into that a little bit later, but
like there's stories of goalies that play terrible, they get traded, new start, they play better. I mean, obviously it can happen. He's got the potential there. It's just I agree. I think the fans are kind of getting not, they want to get rid of him. They're not happy. You hear a lot of chatter. There's been people, I don't know, it's just I can't see him making it.
He's been in the rumors for a while.
Yeah.
And St. Louis fans are pretty hard on him, and I can understand. I bet he's can be inconsistent, but when he's on his game, he can be the best goalie in the league. It's a lot like Devin Dubnyk.
There's a lot of goalies that are like that. They have flashes of brilliance, and then when the time comes, like the majority of the time comes, they're just I don't know.
Exactly.
I feel bad for him.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, because he's a good dude.
Yeah.
The next game was Boston Nashville. Nashville won 1-0.
This was probably the most uneventful game of the night.
That's literally what I have written down in my notes. It was so uneventful that the NHL app on PlayStation didn't even have a game recap video.
Yeah.
That's how many non-highlights there were. There were 4 individual videos that you could watch, and 3 of them weren't goals and weren't interesting whatsoever.
So let me ask you something. Let's say that was a Montreal game. Montreal won 1-0, but it was an absolutely uneventful game. Would you rather watch a game, and I'm talking if you are a fan in the rink.
Right.
Would you rather see your team lose 6-5 with a super entertaining game, or would you rather a 1-0 game where basically nothing happened the entire game?
So I take a loss.
You take a loss over a win, but a much more entertaining game to be at or to watch on TV, I guess.
I think this, for me, I don't go to NHL games very often. I've been to 2 NHL games in the last 12 years. So I would probably choose the entertaining game just for an entertainment standpoint. But if I'm a local fan that goes to a lot of games, I'll take that 1-0 win any day of the week.
Yeah, that's probably right. I'm the same way. I've been to like 3 games, I think.
It's expensive for us.
Yeah, there's nothing close really. I mean, 8 hours Montreal, 8.5 Boston. Staying overnight's not cheap. The tickets aren't cheap. I mean, they're pretty high market teams. The last 2 times I've gone to Boston, they've lost. So I haven't seen them win. The last time I've seen them win was in Montreal against Montreal.
Oh no!
So it kind of sucks that way. So I don't know. It was a discussion that was brought up somewhere I was reading where people were talking about a stale game versus an entertaining loss, and what would you rather see? And I thought it was kind of interesting.
You're not seeing a game for less than $500 if you're us.
Probably not. No,
because the tickets alone are going to be at least $100.
You can't make a day trip of it, really.
No, you can't. You have to stay overnight. Gas is going to be, I don't know, $120, maybe something like that. And plus food, and you're going to want to buy some merchandise up there probably, and
$200-300 for a hotel probably.
Yeah. Obviously, that gets split depending on how many people are going. But the next game was Vegas and Carolina. Vegas won 3-0. Fleury had a great game. 29th goaltender in NHL history to get 50 shutouts or more.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Pretty awesome. He did it as a Golden Knight. That was pretty good. He played great that game. Great home win for Vegas. New Jersey lost to the Islanders 3-0. Islanders are proving that they don't need Tavares to win.
I'm wondering what's up with this Islanders team.
Do you think it's just
I don't know.
You think they can do it?
I don't know.
All season?
I don't know.
Because
I would say no, but I would say no 3 games ago. I'd say no 2 games ago. They're playing better than I thought they ever would. I don't know if they got a chip on their shoulder and they're saying, "Hey, we don't need that guy to be successful."
I think that's exactly what it is.
It's awesome to see, but I mean, not to bring this back to Discord again, but there's a lot of people when the predictions go out, they predict against the Islanders almost every time, and they're always wrong. And they're even saying in the chat, "Why do I keep going against them?" Because it's just the obvious pick not to take them. So I think it's pretty awesome.
They're surprising a lot of people. They're getting consistent goaltending for the first time in a while. Their power play looks really good. I have some stats on the Islanders I'll talk about a little bit later, but I hope they keep it up.
I think I showed you a part of the clip. That overtime between Pittsburgh they had a few games ago was one of the most entertaining overtimes I've ever seen.
That was an epic poke check.
Back and forth. He made some great saves. The poke check was awesome. The fans just standing up, going nuts over that. So it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great game. I watched the beginning of that game, but unfortunately missed the end of that game, which was the wrong decision. I should have done it in the opposite order, but whatever. Toronto continues to be undefeated on the road. They beat Pittsburgh last night 5-0, and Morgan Riley specifically was literally all over
everywhere.
The ice.
Everywhere.
Behind the net, in front of the net, on the side, and where he
we
should
were
have
watching
been.
it, and I was like, "What is he doing up there?" And you were just saying he's on fire, and he is. He's everywhere.
He's having a great season.
He's having a great season, and it seems like Toronto and Pittsburgh have the same problem. They're terrible at home, and they're great on the road.
Yeah, they both have the same problem. You're right, exactly. Anyways, fun. It was a fun game to watch. Dallas played Washington. Washington was Washington has the definition of sniper players. There was 2 goals in that game, one from Kuznetsov and one from Backstrom, where the goalie was blocking the entire net, and there's just like a literal sliver of net above that shoulder, and Kuznetsov and Backstrom both scored there.
Yep.
Like, that's the definition of sniper.
Yep.
And Backstrom's not considered a sniper. He's a playmaker. He's got like 40% of assists on Ovechkin's goals, so that tells you a lot that a playmaker can even score when he wants to. Backstrom is very underrated.
And like the way that all the goalies are playing the butterfly now, they're down a lot before the shots come in.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Which I guess, I don't know if they're practicing that during practice. Maybe they are, but it was crazy. It was almost 2 of the exact same shot in the same spot with like a hole the size of your fist, and it goes in. It's just unbelievable.
And the only option to save that is your head.
That's right.
Like, you could just,
because you're already down. You can't. Like you can't. You're right.
You can't. Your post is there, so you can't lift your arm.
It's literally a perfect shot.
Yeah, it is literally perfect. And then there was I don't want to say this is controversial, but there was a penalty shot in overtime, and I personally don't think it should have been a penalty shot.
I don't either.
Or a penalty or anything. I thought it was a clean play.
There's a lot of times where someone will be on a breakaway, in quotes, and they'll get hacked at the hands, and it's 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes. And then last night, I think there was 2 penalty shots, wasn't there?
Maybe
there was only one, but I thought
only one in overtime.
Okay, one. But I don't know.
I mean, luckily, hope we saved that. But I mean, they lost a couple of minutes later when what's his face scored. But pretty good game from what we watched. The Chicago-Calgary game. Calgary won 5-3, and Chicago played well at the first half of that game. They had the lead, and then Calgary came back there in the third specifically. Crawford let in some pretty soft goals. He made one really good save.
I don't think he's at 100% yet.
Well, he missed so much time. It's going to take him a little bit to get back into his game. But they had that game. Like they had it, and then they lost.
He's played pretty well for the most part since he's been back.
He has.
So I mean, it's expected that he's going to have bad nights, I guess, or off nights. But
I would say that Chicago's playing as expected this year. Not dominant, but still competitive.
That's fair.
Yeah. Second last game was the LA and Columbus game. Bobrovsky does not look like a typical Bobrovsky.
No.
He let in some pretty soft goals last night, but near the end of the game, I think it was Kopitar's goal, the fourth one or the third one, he made an unbelievable pad save on that first shot. It's just an unreal save, and then he almost got the second one, but
and he was almost upset with his team or himself that he didn't get the second one.
Yeah, I think he was upset with himself.
Yeah,
but
I don't know how he would have saved it based on how he saved the first one, though. It was almost impossible. Like, you get your left pad out and barely stop it with, like, the toe of your skate or whatever, and then the next one's come on top right corner. There's no way you're going.
And he was screened at the time of that
There's no way
you're
stopping that.
But he hasn't, other than that specific play, he hasn't really looked like typical Bobrovsky. And I'm wondering if the contract situation is weighing on him a little bit, and because this is his final year, and he's not the only one in the team in that situation. Panarin is also in that situation. So there's I don't want to use the word drama in Columbus, but there's conversations that need to happen, I think, between them.
Distractions.
There's distractions. That's the right word I'm looking for. Yeah, there's distractions there. So a little frustrating for sure if you're a Columbus fan. The final game, San Jose and Philadelphia. San Jose won 4-3. 2 very quick goals in this game. The ice barely had skate marks on it, and the lineups were still on the screen, and Philadelphia scored.
Yeah.
And then I think it was like 3 or 4 minutes later, San Jose scored
3 and
again.
change, I think. Yeah.
It was weird. But San Jose looked so disorganized at time, like that. There was a Philadelphia goal. I can't remember what one. I think it was the third goal. Brent Burns was doing like pirouettes on the ice near the circle. I don't know what he was doing, but
we were watching it, and Neil calls out, "What are you doing, Burns?" Yeah. Just like,
jeez. And then at the end in the OT, Voracek got absolutely stripped.
Oh, so bad.
It was I would say embarrassing. It wasn't embarrassing.
It looked like a lack of effort. Like, I don't know if he was just winded or tired or whatever, but it seemed like it could have been his puck easily.
Yeah.
And he just lost the battle, and it was terrible. I couldn't believe it was Voracek.
Yeah, because you don't see that from Voracek very often. I think he was probably winded because it was overtime. Depending on what happens, you're out there for longer than normal. But it was exciting. It was exciting overtime, yeah. So that wraps up all the games for Saturday night. If we move on to the streaks, I always like talking about the streaks. I find it interesting that teams go on losing streaks and then winning streaks, and I think we saw New Jersey on a bit of a winning streak at the beginning of the season, and now they're in that losing streak category. They've lost 3 in a row, and they're joined by Chicago, who's also lost 3 in a row. Everyone else's 2 are under. As far as wins go, there's a lot of team on winning streaks at 3 games or higher. We've got the Islanders on a 5-game winning streak. The Arizona Coyotes on a 5-game winning streak.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Calgary with 4, Nashville with 3, Dallas with 3, and Vancouver with 3. That's a lot of winning streaks, more than usual on a weekly basis. So lots of teams playing very consistent and pretty good out there. Did you know that 6 out of 7 Canadian teams are in the top 15 in the NHL right now?
I did not.
I don't remember the last time that happened.
Wow.
Ottawa's the only one that's not there. If Ottawa had won their past 2 games, every single Canadian team would have been in the playoffs, as far as it stands right now.
But based on what Ottawa looked like last night, it's understandable why they're not.
It sucks. It's frustrating, but I mean, Ottawa played like you expect Ottawa would play this year, and that sounds really mean, but they're a team in transition. There's oh my god, last year in Ottawa there's so much drama.
There's so much going on there.
I feel so bad for Ottawa fans, and their attendance is down, and it's just it's really hard for Ottawa right now. Hopefully things turn around and pick up, but anyway. Now this is an interesting conversation that we kind of started but never finished yesterday, off camera. You brought up the question, should NHL seasonal games be played internationally? Because we just saw those 2 games in Finland. Winnipeg played Florida twice, and you actually asked a question about this to a Sportsnet employee.
Oh, yeah.
You reached out to John Shannon of Sportsnet, and he replied to you. You just tweeted him.
Yeah.
And he tweeted back.
It was harmless. It was like this one little thing.
What was your question?
Basically, I asked him how, because I like the business of sports, basically. And I said, how does compensation work for teams who give up a home game to play? So, like, how does, like, Winnipeg, or they're giving up a game, obviously, to play this game. And how do they get paid for that? Like, how does the ownership get paid for that game?
Yeah, because teams make a lot of money from home games.
That's right. Like, that's where they make, some of the teams, like the lower end teams, they make most of their money from their ticket sales.
Yeah.
And the rest of it comes from small revenues or revenue sharing. So I was just wondering, like, how does this work? And he replied and said that basically they get paid by the NHL an average of one of their games that gets worked.
So if they played 7 home games this season, they take the average amount of what they've made and then give them.
It might be. I don't know if it's the average of.
Or is it the previous season?
I think it might be just an average overall. Maybe factoring the previous season too. Because there's preseason games too that happen, so they'd have to figure that out. So they'd have to use data from. I think they just have like some numbers. Like they have all kinds of analytics at the office.
Is it team specific or NHL specific?
That's a good question. He wasn't specific on that. I assume it's team specific
It probably has to be
because Toronto Maple Leafs would be making more obviously than Buffalo would be making. So I don't think if Toronto had a game in Finland or wherever, I don't think they would pay them the average of everyone. I think they would have to kind of give them their own average because otherwise why would they agree to do that?
Well, the league average is probably about 50% higher than Florida's home average.
That's right.
So they'd be making a mint playing in Finland. So yeah, it would have to be team specific for sure because the NHL is cheap and they don't want to pay any money they don't have to.
And I was one of these people that didn't like having. I don't like. If you would have asked me this question like a week and a half ago, I would have said I hate the idea of going overseas in the middle of a season to have games that count. Like I don't like that at all. Preseason is whatever.
Yeah, preseason's fine for me.
Calgary went across, like that's fine. You did it before it started, and it kind of. Some people argue that affected the start of their season because of the jet lag coming back.
Yeah.
And whatever. But when the season's going, I wasn't down with it. But then coming back to Discord again, there's actually people that live there that went to those games and they had an amazing experience. So I don't know if it's right for me to deny that experience for those hockey fans that get to see games at prime time in their time zone.
Yeah.
So
do you think there's any less value for them seeing a preseason game versus a regular season game? I
would say probably not, but I think the fact that it means something means the players are probably going to try harder.
Yeah, because these countries like Finland has the SM Liga, they have their own teams, their own league, whatever, but There's a lot of people from Finland
There's
who follow the
There's a
NHL
lot.
because there's a lot of Finnish players in the NHL. Like Joel Armia.
Like overall, I would say I probably still don't like the idea of it if I had to pick one. Like if I'm not allowed to be on the fence about this issue. But I do see the value of people who are there who are fans, because there are a lot of fans. Like we've seen through this channel, there are an enormous amount of fans overseas, and there is value in entertainment in them being able, and it's awesome for them.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't know. If it was my choice, I would say let's keep it to the preseason, which kind of sucks because maybe your full lineup's not there. Maybe people are recovering still from like, summer surgeries they had out in the off season. Like maybe they're not trying as hard because they're just over there and they're on the town at night. They're checking things out. When it's in the season, there's tight schedules. You're not allowed at night. You're eating your normal meals. You're doing your workouts. You're doing your practice. We need these 2 points. So for that reason, I don't like it. But I also, it's the same reason I think that's what makes it great for them too, because they're seeing a meaningful game.
Absolutely.
So in the end, I am on the fence about it still. If I had to choose, I don't like it. But for the people that do get to go see them, and there are people that we've actually talked to that have seen them, I think that's awesome for them.
It is awesome. And I think that, here's a question for you. How would you feel about an entire playoff series being played over there, starting before all the other series, like a couple days before, and they get to finish like 5 days ahead of everyone else, so they have that rest period to come back and stuff?
For me, I wouldn't mind that because I'm not in a market where that team is. If I, as a Boston fan, lived in Boston and they said the first round of Boston-Montreal is going to be in Russia or wherever, I would be like, what the frig is that?
Yeah.
But if it's just a TV game and they can kind of make the time work, I guess it would be an earlier afternoonish game. For the West Coast, it would be terrible. Because
it'd be bad.
For us, we're actually usually an hour ahead of typical North America.
We're 4 hours behind, I think, Finland, or 5.
So for us, it wouldn't be too bad. I think overall people wouldn't like it. If you were to poll people, they would say, no, we don't like that idea. I wouldn't care because I'm not going to that game anyway.
That's true.
It's fine. Like,
it's fine for us.
I'm going to watch it on TV anyway. It is what it is. It gives a chance. But I think overall, if you were to ask people in general, like if NHL put a poll out, I think it would be pretty strongly, like 70-80%, they'd say no, keep the games here.
I agree. Let us know down in the comments what you think about that.
But I think if you were asking those people from, Sweden or Finland or wherever, they would say, yes, bring that.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, they would bring that here. But
absolutely.
But like I don't think there's no way the NHL could make enough money off those compared to what the main cities could charge. Like, you're not going to go international and charge people more for the tickets than you would have made here. So the NHL has no reason to spend an entire series paying basically the two teams to do that. Like right now it's marketing. We go over for 2 games, we come back. We're trying to grow the game, et cetera, et cetera. I can't see them ever doing a playoff like that just because the money doesn't work out. But I think for the people that were there, they would love that, obviously. And the people that were here, I'm on the fence again, I guess.
How would you feel about, we'll keep with the Finland trend here. If a team in Finland in the SM Liga came over and played an NHL team for a preseason game.
That would be fine.
It would be awesome, I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that would be really cool because that happens in Europe. Teams play each other from different leagues.
The problem with our generation that the previous generation didn't have is we know everything.
Yeah.
It's so easy to follow any team you want. It's so easy to just know who the players are. There's no mystery anymore. Like
exactly.
Like for our dads, when they were watching like the 70s, you didn't know necessarily the player because you only had 3 channels that were hockey. And Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday covered 2 games or 3 games or whatever, and that's basically what you got for the week, maybe one during the weekday. Now hockey's on every night. You can see everything.
Watch replays and
there's social media, there's clips, you're informed. If you want to know something, it's so easy.
It's too much. It's you can't keep up with it.
It is.
Yeah, and like I live and breathe hockey, and I can't keep up with everything, so it's hard. Yeah.
So basically, the mystery of the unknown isn't there. So I think having, the top team of other leagues coming in, I think that would be actually pretty cool, just to see how the best of that league, works against a team. Like not the best of the NHL, just a team in the NHL. And I think that could be kind of cool.
I think it would be competitive.
I think it would be, depending on, like, you could, like, if you took one of the bottom teams in the NHL and you put them against the best team, there's a very good chance they could probably win.
Absolutely.
And then if you just pick like, an average middle team or upper middle team and then put them against the best, I think it would actually be pretty competitive.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd really like to see that, actually.
If that was going to happen, would you want to see it on NHL ice or Olympic ice?
NHL ice.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, NHL ice, I think. International ice is fine. I don't hate it or anything, but just used to.
It's funny how I find with the Olympic ice, or international ice, there's more space, but it's almost like there's less space when you're watching the game. I don't find there's more plays with the bigger ice. It's just people. I don't know if it's just because people don't adapt to it because they're used to the smaller, but
yeah.
I don't know. I just find everything's more condensed and there's more action when you have the smaller ice.
I find there's less hits.
There's definitely less hits.
International ice, more room to move and stuff. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, the game's exactly the same. Anything else to add in that topic?
We could transition to a hits. I know you have a certain hit on your notes. Do you want to transition to that while we're talking about hits? Or you could be getting out of order here.
Yeah, it's way down my list.
Okay, we'll get back to it later then.
All right, next thing I have is, you mentioned this the other day. I didn't know anything about it, but apparently, I'm assuming the Sportsnet guys were talking about, should Arizona make an offer?
I was going to bring this up. I didn't know if you had it on your notes or not.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a question I have for basically everyone that's listening. So there was actually a debate, and if you're in Canada and you watch Sportsnet, you probably heard this debate. It was brought up multiple days, and the question was, if you are the owner of the Arizona Coyotes, are you asking your general manager to offer sheet Austin Matthews if he's not signed this year by Montreal? And for those of
Toronto?
Sorry, for those of you that don't know what an offer sheet is, and I barely know what it is myself, but basically, if you're a restricted free agent, other teams have a chance to offer you an offer sheet, and it doesn't happen very often because GMs hate it when people do that. It's just like an unwritten rule that you just generally don't do that.
Yeah.
It happens sometimes. It's very rare. It does happen though. So basically, what they were saying was you should offer sheet Austin Matthews. He's a local kid. He's an American. He's one of the best players in the league, and you basically max out on him. You make him the first player that would ever be offered max money, which would be around 16, 17 million based on where the cap goes. If they did that, Toronto wouldn't be able to match it.
No, they can't afford it.
Because they can't afford all their players and then paying him $17 million.
Yeah.
So basically, it would be a guaranteed if he accepted it that they would pick him and then give up 4 first-round picks, I think is what you have to give up.
Is it worth it?
And they were saying McDavid would be in the same vein. Like every team should have offered him an offer sheet, and the same for McDavid. He says, the question or the statement that John Shannon made on Sportsnet was, any manager that does not offer sheet Austin Matthews should be fired.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
Because he's that good.
Yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you, right?
So, Arizona's not a market that has lots of money. Obviously, it's kind of a struggling market. It just is. Right?
It is, yeah.
But if you brought the local kid back, who is an American, like I said, he's fantastic. He's one of the top players in the league. He may not necessarily turn that into a winning franchise, but just having him there could boost revenues.
It could revitalize that whole franchise.
It could.
It's like, seriously, it could.
He's one of those type of players that can put a team on his back and go.
I think they could make it work based on their cap and stuff, but like Toronto's not even close to making that work. I don't think they'd have to give up so many franchise players that they already have. They'd have to give up. I don't know.
It would be tough. They're already struggling with the Nylander situation. Right now.
Exactly.
Like they're saying like anything over 6 or 6.5 throws our cap off.
Yeah.
So how are you able to add that to Austin Matthews' contract? Just basically saying he's getting 10 or 11. Add that and then still have room left over for other people.
Yeah,
they don't. They
Mitch
just don't.
Marner needs to be signed soon.
That's right.
So, oh man, I hope that happens. Not so much in the fact that I want to see Toronto suffer or anything like that, just because it would be exciting to talk about, and it would be something that never really happened in the NHL before, and it would be good for the Arizona franchise.
And it would be interesting to see if once the first offer sheet went out, if others started after.
Oh, yeah.
Like, because GMs, like I said, it's an unwritten rule that you don't do it. It does happen. Like, I think it happened to Stahl or someone.
Oh, did it?
There was someone that it happened to. They were bringing up. I don't know offhand, so I won't talk about it. But if you're not the first, if once one's out, like, what's stopping other teams from saying, hey, well, if you're going to do it, I'm going to do it too. And the next thing you know, there's 15 offer sheets.
Yeah, because there's teams like Carolina with like $24 million in cap space or whatever they're at now.
Like, what team would not want Austin Matthews? Like, a lot of them would. So
San Jose couldn't afford it.
There's a lot of teams that could, but there's a lot of teams that could.
There's a lot of teams that could, like Detroit. Detroit would need Matthews, but they can't even come close.
I think
to
the key
affording him.
with Arizona was just because that's where he's from,
Yeah,
and
that's where he grew up.
it's the name that helped them out. But it is an interesting conversation. I don't know if it would happen or not, but it would be interesting to listen to Toronto talk about it, because basically all the hockey in this country in Canada is Toronto based, and then it goes to other places. But like if you turn on like a hockey show, the first half of the show is talking about Toronto, and then they put everything else in the last half an hour.
It's frustrating.
So that would dominate everything up here if
Just
that
like
ever happened.
the Tavares situation in the summer.
That's right.
It's all they talked about every day for 3 months basically, and they're still talking about it. Speaking of Tavares, that's my next topic.
Oh,
the Islanders without Tavares. Now we've already talked a little bit about this, but I just wanted to compare some stats. So currently the Islanders are 8-4-1 with 17 points, or a plus 12. One of the best teams in the league right now. Bailey's has 15 points. Lee has 13. Barzal has 12. Nelson has 9. Tavares has 16 with Toronto. So still technically, he still would be the best player if you're just going by points on the Islanders, if he was still there. But, I mean, these guys ain't no slouches. Lee is having an incredible season. Bailey is having a higher, I think they played 13 games. So he's got 15 points in 13 games. So his points per game is above 1. And Tavares does have a better supporting cast in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious
without question.
I'm curious to see if Tavares had have stayed on the island and the Islanders are playing exactly like they are now, where Tavares would be as far as points and stuff and production on that team. But man, the Islanders are legit right now.
Tavares may have not necessarily formed the entirety of the chemistry with his line mates yet either.
Yeah, that's true.
It's all new, right? And
Yeah.
he's doing quite well for being new on a new line, a new team.
He is, yeah.
New city. So he is playing with a little bit higher caliber players, generally speaking. But I think anyone that plays with him, like rising tide,
He elevates their game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's for sure. The next situation, or the next topic, is an interesting situation. It's pretty controversial. It's the Slava Voynov situation. We talked about this off camera yesterday. So basically, here's the backstory of what happened originally. So him and his wife were arguing at a Halloween party. He ripped off her costume and punched her in the jaw and demanded a divorce. He threw her down to the ground and started choking her, and eventually kicked her like 5 or 6 times. Also punched her also pushed her into a TV, which cut her eye and like covered their room with blood. And she required 8 stitches, a tetanus shot, and she said it wasn't the first time that something like this has happened.
So basically, it's 4 years ago,
Yeah.
kind of now, because it happened at a Halloween party. So basically 4 years exactly. And like you said, took off her costume, took off her glasses, broke the glasses, stepped on them in front of everybody. They went home, said, I want a divorce. You're not getting any of this money, blah, blah, blah. And then punched her with a closed fist.
Yeah.
Like, closed fist on a woman. Like, that's douchebaggy. Like, I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
it is.
it is.
And then knocked her to the ground, kicked her, choked her. She was screaming for help the entire time. Like, pushed up against the TV, 8 stitches in her face.
So now he's appealing to come back in the NHL. And the NHL is going through an extensive investigation process, is what I read, to see what actually happened, if it's true, if it's not. So there's a lot of people that are just like,
And
how are you even considering this?
The NHL preemptively suspended him.
Yes, they did.
Before any legal action came. They the news came out. They did their own investigation. I think a lot of leagues do this type of thing now. It was 1 month after I think I mentioned to you, it was 1 month after the Ray Rice situation with the elevator.
Yes.
So, I mean, that was hot on everybody's mind. So I think it was just, as soon as they found out what happened, no, you're done until we find out. I think he served 2 months in jail and then was sent back.
Yeah.
He's been playing in the KHL as far as I know.
So if he's allowed back in,
the question is does he deserve a second chance? And in my opinion, he does not.
he did. I would say no.
Like,
in my opinion as well.
I'm like basically the legal the system in North America is built on second chances. That's why you serve your time and you come out, in theory, a free man. I would argue you're never a free man after that you have that rap or whatever.
I agree. Yeah.
But in this situation, I think the crime or the events that resulted in him being suspended are so heinous that he doesn't deserve ever again to come back.
I agree.
And the NHL suspended him while it was going on, and then I think like he said, he served 2 months in jail, and then he was sent back to Russia. He actually hasn't really served a big NHL suspension sentence. So
that's the question. If he does get allowed back in the NHL, does he have to serve that suspension?
And is the Players Association going to represent him? Because that's what their job is.
Yes, that's true.
So the PA is like a lot of times the PA is kind of interesting because it's like a player on a player. Like someone injures a guy, and then the PA has to represent the defense and kind of the guy who got hurt and the guy who did it. And generally, it looks like they're sticking up for the guy who caused the injury rather than the guy who got hurt, right?
Yep.
In this situation, it's just a player and his wife. So the PA is only on one side of this argument. And I think they have to represent him because that's what they're there to do. I don't know if they'll push for it, but it's like I said, I don't think he deserves to come back. Like sometimes the crime is just so bad that
they legally have to represent him.
They're going to represent him, and they may be able to find an argument where yes, he deserves to come back. He served his time. He's like, I think he pleaded to something, and technically, like in terms of like the law, he's good now. Like he wasn't allowed in the country. I think they kicked him out of the country, and now he's allowed back into the country, but he still hasn't served anything officially from the NHL. So the question is, if the PA or whatever finds a way for him to be saying, yes, you deserve to come back, are you going to slap a huge suspension on him that by the time that suspension's over, he's basically useless?
Like, how long do you think the suspension would be?
I don't know.
Like years?
I don't know.
Basically forcing him to stay out of the NHL.
Like,
because he's not going to wait over here for 2 or 3 years.
And I just think that, like, the Me Too stuff from this year, like 2018, 2017, I don't think the public would have any appetite.
It just makes the league look bad.
It would make them look terrible.
Even if the story wasn't true, even if it never happened and she was lying and he didn't actually do that, it would still make the league look bad for allowing him to come back in. And if it didn't happen,
but the league, but what we do know for sure is that the league did their own investigation and they suspended him.
Yes.
So obviously they found something.
They did, yeah.
So, I don't know if I was the league, I would be doing everything I can to say no. I'm sorry, but you're done. Like they have the power to do that. If somehow the PA, he goes to the PA and says you have to represent me, I'm part of your union or whatever, and they find a way for it to get in, then I hope the NHL finds a way to slap a huge suspension on him.
I agree.
That makes it basically worthless for him to try to come back.
Do you know there's already trade rumors with him?
Really?
Yeah. With LA and Toronto. Nylander for him, and I can't remember the other name, but he's already being talked about in trade rumors.
I can't see it because Toronto is half owned by Rogers, half owned by Bell. Basically, it's like I think they have 90% or something like that, and the other 10% is owned by one other guy. And Rogers with Sportsnet and the Blue Jays actually just dealt with Roberto Osuna, who had the same issue.
Yes.
And it wasn't even an option for them to keep him because they actually fired one of their analysts because he was making sexist remarks in Sportsnet. So they let him go. That was Greg Zahn. They let him go. They said, we have a zero tolerance policy. And then when the Osuna stuff came up, you had people like on the radio there saying, if you got rid of Greg for zero tolerance, then this guy has no spot in this lineup.
Oh.
And as soon as he was eligible to come back to play, he was gone. So I just can't see a company like Rogers or Bell, which are basically the same company. They do the same things. They're publicly consumer, like mobile phones and internet and stuff. Like you could have a reputation that would make someone leave your company or leave your services for someone else. And I don't think the market's there in Toronto for that.
I agree.
I would hope it's not there anywhere for that, but we know that some teams, some markets will take a better player regardless and just say, well, this is his fresh start. He's going to go to counseling. I don't like that bull crap. I think that's bull crap.
I think, you remember when Matt Cassian was traded at Montreal and he played a couple preseason games and then he got an accident and he was under the influence and Montreal and the league made him go to rehab or whatever, but Montreal was like, see ya.
Really?
Shipped him off.
No, I don't remember that.
They wouldn't even, they didn't care even if he came out of rehab completely successful. We don't want that.
Like, you made our team look bad.
Exactly.
You're done.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And that's under the influence. This is heinously beating your wife on record and doctors, medical files to back it up. And then you also have her saying that this is not the first time, it's happened multiple times.
Yeah.
So Buddy obviously has anger issues. Like, like I said when we first started this, like it's a society built on second chances, but sometimes you don't deserve that second chance.
Mm-hmm.
And like
I think he's lucky he's a Russian citizen,
mm-hmm.
and he's not. He's Russian, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he was American, he probably would be in jail for a long time. Like, he was deported. Mm-hmm. I assume, like, literally deported.
It wasn't deported. He was going to be deported, but then he signed some sort of thing where it basically said, okay, I'm going to leave. And they said,
right.
Okay. He served his 2 months, signed some sort of paper, said, okay, I'm going to go back to Russia now. He's out of the country. Over time, I don't know what happened, if he served some sort of community sentence over there or something, but basically he's allowed to come back to the country. Now that he's allowed to come back to the country, he's saying he's applying to come back. And
well, I think it's a little silly that there's already trade rumors out there with Nylander, but I talked about a Nylander trade rumor, or not a rumor, but I was trying to pick a team and a player that would be a good fit in Toronto that they could swap Nylander for, and I said Justin Falk plus someone else, and a lot of people made fun of me for saying Justin Falk, and that's okay, but just Leaf fans, just so you know, Justin Falk has 6 points, he's a +3, which is 4th best on the Leafs right now, just saying, so don't tell me that he couldn't be a positive influence, because I think he can. Anyway, did you know that Craig Anderson is in the trade rumors?
No.
Yes, he is. St. Louis and Philadelphia are very interested in Craig Anderson. Philadelphia has had probably the most inconsistent and unlucky goaltending in the last 16 years or so. I don't think Anderson is the right fit. And like, it's just like every year Philadelphia goes out and gets this goaltender that just doesn't fit. And I think Anderson would be another example of exactly that. They have, I think his name's Carter Hart coming up for them, who played really well for Canada in the juniors a couple years ago, I think. He could be their franchise goalie. And I hope that happens sooner than later, because that Philadelphia really needs a franchise long-term goaltender. But I can see Anderson moving. Who would want to stay in Ottawa? No offense to Ottawa fans, but sometimes players just need to move around a little bit. I think that's a good example. Now, time for the hit that you wanted to talk about earlier. Mm-hmm. So there's an Ian Cole hit on Mark Jankowski. He received a 5-minute major and a game misconduct. This happened in a game 2 or 3 nights ago?
2 or 3 nights ago, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he laid the hit. It was a suicide pass up.
It was a terrible pass.
Terrible pass. He laid the hit, and then like 4 guys tried to fight him. He ended up fighting someone. Mm-hmm. I don't even remember who it was at the time, but that was a clean hit, guys.
It was absolutely a clean hit.
Like, if you watch the replay from any angle, that was 100% a clean hit, shoulder on shoulder.
Some people are arguing for a charging call, but he only took 2 strides with his skates and then just coasted into him.
Yeah.
Like, that's, if you go back 10 years, that hit happens all the time. Like, that's why they say keep your head up.
Exactly, keep your head up.
Like,
it's the perfect example of a suicide pass and not keeping your head up.
It's a terrible pass. Like, it's just rough.
Yeah.
But there's no way he should have got a 5 and an ejection for it.
I think that was a ridiculous call. So, again, back to the NHL being inconsistent with their calls and stuff. And in last podcast, I had the idea of having a 4th referee or a 3rd referee in between the scorekeepers, who is literally an official who can make decisions that happen on the ice based on what he sees on camera. So he can call the other 2 referees over and be like, you guys missed that. This is actually what happened. I'm sitting here watching it on the screen. Mm-hmm. You need to reverse that call. Because that call probably would have been reversed if it was reviewed. So, unacceptable.
No, it was a big hit, but it was a body hit. Like, there was no hit at all.
Shoulder on shoulder.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
crazy. This is something else you brought up yesterday.
Bringing too much stuff up, everybody.
The ideas that you have, most of your ideas are business related. That's why I think the podcast really succeeded in the beginning, because we had a lot of good hockey business.
There was a lot of stuff going on then.
Yeah.
It seemed like,
but sports gambling is something I didn't even. Sports gambling in the NHL specifically is something that I did not know existed, but apparently it does. MGM officially approved for a multi-year legal betting on NHL games. You want to explain that a little bit?
I don't know enough about it that I should, but I know enough to kind of fill people in if they don't know. So Monday was the big announcement. We knew it was coming last week. So basically, the MGM Resorts, who owns all those casinos and stuff, they have all the sports books. They went into an agreement with NHL, so the NHL is basically selling them the rights to use their logos, their names, but they're also selling them advanced stats that don't exist yet.
Yeah.
And that's the most interesting part of this to me. So you are going to be bidding on who you think is going to be winning the game before the game, but a lot of this is based on in-game betting when the game is live. So they're going to have like sensors in the puck. They're going to have sensors on the players. You're going to know how fast players are out there for. You're going to know immediately how long their shifts are. You're going to know how tired they are. You're going to know if they're slowing down as the game going on. You're going to know how fast they're shooting the puck. So they're basically building this intense, like advanced stats. Like, and the NHL stats that they have available right now, I know from making the bot, are actually very good.
Yeah.
Like you've seen it too. You go on NHL.com, they'll show you where the shots were taken, like on what spot. So they have a lot of data already. They're going beyond that with this.
So maybe you don't know, but I'll ask you the question: are these bets something that MGM is deciding on themselves? Like during the game, Ovechkin has 5 shots, and will he get 5 more shots? Will he double his shot total?
MGM has total control over what the bets are.
So a person can't make their own bets.
You're not making your own bet.
Okay.
No. So basically, they're gonna set a line on certain things. Like it'll be, we think this is gonna happen. Like say we think, I don't even know what it would be. Like an example would be, do you think Ovechkin will have 6 shots? They'll set a number like 6, 5, or 4, and then you'll basically predict on one side of that line, and they'll use that as the game goes on. They'll keep adjusting the line based on the stats data that they have.
Okay.
So basically, they do a lot in soccer, like overseas, like in Europe and stuff. There's a lot of in-game betting, so it's basically the same thing. The funny thing about hockey, I find, is hockey is one of the hardest games to predict.
Well, there's a lot of puck luck.
Like there is, like when you compare like a football game or a basketball game, like the star players of those teams are just playing more. So it's, if you have a strong team versus a weak team, there's a good chance that strong team is going to win. In hockey, you don't know. Anything can happen.
Yeah, and baseball is very analytical and statistical. That's why that movie Moneyball was so popular and informative.
So it's funny because a lot of people are thinking like, well, it's hard, and I think that's why the advanced stats is coming with it, because they want to try to improve people's chances based on data. So I think that's really interesting, and only MGM Resorts is going to have access to this data. It's not
exclusive.
It's not publicly available. That's part of what they're paying for, and all of the, I guess, betting money that MGM makes is theirs. They don't give any of that back to the NHL. So the NHL is not profiting off of the bets directly.
Just the contract.
They're profiting over the contract of selling the rights to the data and the logos and stuff.
So the NHL doesn't care if it's successful or not successful. They're getting money.
The NHL thinks that the sports betting and they're hoping that other partners come on too. This is not limited to MGM. They're just the first ones to go with them. So they're hoping like fantasy players will get in on this.
Okay.
So, and like a lot of people, like in the States especially, they don't necessarily watch football anymore. They watch football for their fantasy teams.
Yeah.
Fantasy is huge in the States. So I think the NHL is hoping that that's the long-term plan, that people get more involved with the game because they're actually betting on it.
Yeah.
Like there is a market for that, unfortunately, but I know a lot of people will be interested. It'll be interesting to see how it happens at first. Like right now it's limited just to MGM. It's going to be limited to the casinos and stuff like that.
Is there a year on that?
I think for the MGM thing, I think it's 3 or 4 years.
So they're the only one who can have it for 3-4 years?
Nope, that's just how long their contract lasts. It's not exclusive.
So the NHL can make the same contract with other...
That's right.
Okay.
Or different contracts. It's just MGM's the first one to sign on. They're developing the stats, and I think as other companies see what kind of stats come out, and they're saying like the stats don't exist right now. Like, this could be like each team has like, well, not each team, I guess, but like for example, Toronto definitely does. They have an advanced stats department. They have a team of people that have analytics that we don't even know exist.
Oh yeah.
Because like Kyle Dubas was on one of the shows and he was saying we have a team that look into numbers that people don't know about, and that's their job, and it's proprietary information. That's what he called it, proprietary statistics.
Yeah.
So basically the NHL is going to be going into a little bit of that in generic speak, but then they're also going to be adding sensors to all these things. So like if you're one of these fantasy players and you see what kind of data that MGM has access to, you might say, hey, let's get in on this and make some more money.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, NHL's got all these deals going on. So and you made a good point that you were surprised that the players agreed to this, and the only reason they did is because the money from the contract, it goes into HRR, hockey related revenue, so the players actually get half of it. So that money that goes into this stuff will actually raise the cap.
Yeah, because I think that was one of my first questions when you brought it up the other day. Is how do the players feel about this?
Like I wouldn't like that. Like
I wouldn't like it
people
either.
are going to know in real time if I'm getting tired or if I have an injury and I start slowing down.
Yeah.
They're going to notice right away. Like they're going to have graphs, and all of a sudden you're going to be trending downwards, and they're like, hey, something's going on with this guy.
Yeah.
Like normally that stuff is proprietary to the teams, but now it's going to be people like betting on you. Like
How does the NHL stop the players from having a sideman?
Someone asked that, and they say the integrity of our game is not in jeopardy. But Las Vegas Aces couldn't exist because it consisted of gambling, which was like a couple years ago. So it's a complete 180. Like it's obviously for the money. Obviously,
it's money. Yeah.
But they're hoping it grows the game, and it probably will. But they're really hoping it's going to bring in a bunch of money.
So if you lived in Vegas, hypothetically, would you be betting on hockey?
I would not, because I'm terrible at it.
Me too. I would not bet.
Like
I'm too cheap.
Like we have that prediction system on our Discord. I don't do it because I don't want to be embarrassed.
Yeah, I don't do it either.
So bad. Like it's fun for you guys to do, but if I actually like when we sit down here, like I know at some starts of the year you've had people do predictions on the channel. Mine are nothing. Like it's not even close. Like who do you think's gonna make it? No, I'm terrible at that.
Mine are already bad. We're only 4 weeks into the season,
so no, it's not for me. But there's people that's their job. They're professional sports.
Yeah,
like that's what they do. They're
good at it.
Like I was told a story in Vegas how the bookies will set the line like on where they think the over under should be.
Yeah, and
how they set that line is they have like high rollers, like a special group of people who are so good at it. They give them early access to it, and they see where their bets go.
Wow.
And then they base their line for everyone else based on this select group of high rollers, I guess I'll call it.
Wow.
So there are people that like they're so good with numbers and analytics that they just, I don't know, like even sometimes when you look at analytics, it's wrong. So I don't know how they do it, but
crazy. Well, when I was down in Vegas in last May, I think late May, one of the guys I was staying with made a pretty bold bet before the season started.
Mm-hmm.
I think he put 300 or 500 down on Vegas winning the cup. And this was when everyone was like, yeah, Vegas ain't even making the playoffs, let alone winning the cup. Yeah. If he had won,
the odds would have been so high.
It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It was ridiculous. He would have made so much stupid money.
Mm-hmm.
And they almost did it. Like it's crazy. But yeah, I couldn't find myself betting. Maybe when I'm old and have hopefully a lot of money, but I'm young with no money now. So. Yeah. All right, that was interesting. One more hit on the docket, the Lemieux hit on Trocheck in the game in Finland the other day. That was an elbow to the head. He got it misconduct. Now Lemieux is a pretty tough customer. That name Lemieux, remember Claude Lemieux? He was a pretty tough customer. So the Lemieux in the NHL now. He's played 51 AHL games last season, 7 misconducts, and 170 penalty minutes. That's a lot. And now he's in the NHL, and he lays this hit. I think he gets suspended, but not for a lot of games because he's not a repeat offender. I'd say like 2 games at the most.
Like I was telling you when we seen it, I don't understand those hits.
I don't either.
I don't understand how you can just graze a guy. Like you have a line, and you're crossing him, and you hit him just enough to hit him in the face.
Yeah, you stick up the elbow on purpose.
Like why?
I don't get it.
Like you're not gaining anything of it. You're probably not going to take him out of the game. There's no benefit to it.
And it's 2018. It's almost 2019. There are cameras everywhere. Like
to me, I would think it would be hard to hit a guy just in the face as you're skating parallel or across from him.
Yeah.
Like that's the only part that he hit was he just hit his face and took him sideways like that. Like. I don't know.
It looked really intentional to me, so I hope he does get suspended.
I don't know.
Did you hear that Yanni Gourde got extended?
I did not.
He got extended for 6 years at a $5.17 million average. I think that's really good for
I think
for
that's
Tampa.
all right, yeah.
That's a steal, in my opinion. But it brings up the question of contract value for Braden Point, who's coming up on something pretty expensive soon, I think. So Braden Point, Paquette, Ernie, Martel, Strawman, Coburn, Girardi, Gauntz, and Slater Cuckoo all need signed at the end of this year. That's $15.916 million in combined salaries for those players. They currently have 1.9 in the cap, that cap's probably going to go up maybe a little tiny bit.
It'll go up a little bit.
Not like last year. Not mm-hmm. like last year. So if it remains the same, they'll have 17.81667 million in free space next year. And if Point gets, I think he's going to get in the 8 range, between 8 and 9, mm-hmm. like Draisaitl might. If he does, that leaves high sevens left to sign like 7 more guys. Mm-hmm. Like they're going to let some of them go. They'll probably let go Coburn and Girardi maybe, but they're going to want to keep Strawman. They're going to want to keep Puckhead. They probably want to keep Ernie and obviously Point. It's going to be tough.
It's another reason why I don't like the cap system, basically.
Yeah, I like it personally.
Like every year the cap goes up or is projected to go up. Players and their agents are negotiating that increase into their contract.
Oh yeah.
Like if I'm going to sign here for 5 years, this amount of money now that I'm making in 4 years is a steal for you guys, so I want more.
Yeah.
And every player's doing that, and every player has the right to do that.
And players are even negotiating into the contract on potential lockout years.
That's right. They want the bonuses, the upfronts.
Yeah, and they
almost all of them are doing that.
Exactly.
Now.
Yeah.
Because if you ask a lot of people, they think there is going to be a lockout.
I think there is too.
It'll be interesting.
If there is another lockout, I think Bettman's toast.
I think they like Bettman.
I think that's 3 lockouts under him.
They love him.
Well, the owners love him.
That's all that matters is the owners. They're the ones who vote.
That's unacceptable.
That's how it works.
That's unacceptable.
That's how it works.
NHL, smarten up.
The big fish run the sea.
They do. Speaking of extensions, Pekka Rinne was also just signed to a 2-year extension.
Mm-hmm.
$5 million average per year for 2 years. That's a negative or a minus $2 million per year
mm-hmm.
decrease in salary.
Yep.
You think that's right?
Yep.
I think that's right too.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's not quite what he was.
Yeah, I agree. Still a very good goalie, but still, I'd say underperformed in
mm-hmm.
crucial situations. That's actually all I have. I think the last thing to talk about here is bot news.
Okay, I won't really get into this too much because a lot of these people, this is irrelevant. So
Yeah,
if you're not on our Discord, maybe you should be.
Yeah.
But if you're not and you're not interested in that, you can basically turn this off now.
Invitation link in the description.
That's right. Neil actually helped me develop a feature last night.
Helped.
It was his idea. I basically did all of it, but he was the inspiration behind it.
And by inspiration, it was a mistake.
But before we talk about the update, I just want to talk about the prediction system really quickly. It's exploded. Like I honestly didn't think it would be as big as it was.
People love it.
Like if the bot goes down for like 5 minutes, I know about it. People message me right away, and that's good. Like keep messaging me. That's fine. If something's wrong, I'll try to fix it. But like I thought it would just be this fun little thing to add to the Discord to give something people to do. And I thought I don't know. I think there was like 10 or 12 people that were doing their own predictions on the side. They were just keeping it written down on a piece of paper or in a document. So I said, well, why don't I add something like this to the bot? It's something I want to do for a while. But now it's basically taken over the live chats. Like everybody's it's just like a spam of people doing their predictions, and they're getting mad when they drop, and they're getting pumped when they get higher. And there's like this big goal to be in the top 15 so that your name shows up on the leaderboard.
Well, yeah, you actually have a leaderboard made, and the person in the first place gets a different color name.
That's right. And the top pink or something. And the top 5 get like a light yellow name. So there's little perks if you're doing well.
Yeah, there's perks, and it's like sports betting, but you're not spending any money. It's just for fun, right? And it is fun.
And we had our first point squish actually 3 days ago on the 1st of November.
So explain that a little bit.
So basically at the first of every month, and this was explained, and a lot of people knew it, but a lot of people were still confused why the points didn't add up and why someone was ahead of another person who actually had less predictions that were correct.
Yeah. So
basically what we wanted to do, and I don't even know if this number is right, but I chose 60%, which is basically every month we reduce everyone's points by 40%. So it doesn't matter how many games you predicted right, because that system just works based on who gets the most right in total, and it makes it so people who miss a weekend or miss a night or start late, they have no chance.
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't want that system, so I wanted to do points instead. And what I did was every month we reduce everyone's points by 40% to close gaps to make people closer together.
Yeah.
And some people might not like that. I think most people are okay with it for the most part. The people who are at the top of the board will probably like it the least because it means they have to stay active and keep going.
Exactly.
The people who are at the bottom, it benefits them the most. So we just had that a couple days ago. So a couple people were confused over that. So that's just an explanation of that. But it's just blown up. I can't believe. I think there's 97 people at this time who have made a prediction. That's how many people have a score written down.
If that system wasn't in place, that squish system, it would be like joining a hockey pool and not being able to swap out your players when they get injured, and then 2 weeks in the season, 3 of your players are injured. So what's the point in keeping up with the pool?
And that's why our system is different than what the guys that were doing on the side were. They all decided to get on it together. Basically, they started at the same time generally, and then someone kept a running tally of their scores. We have people on our Discord that are coming and going all the time, so it's important that we make it something that they have access to too. And even with making the points being reduced by 40%, it still makes it hard for them to catch up. It just gives them a little bit of a boost every month. So like if you're earning points for October or November right now, basically, when you go to February, these points you're earning right now are basically worth almost nothing. Yeah. Because they've been reduced by 40%, by 40%, by 40%, by 40%.
You got to keep with it.
They're worth a very small decimal point. So it's never too late to get in on it.
Exactly.
So like right now it seems like you're far away, but in a couple months after a couple squishes have happened, you're going to be right up there if you're good. Now, if your predictions suck and you're comparing yourself to the people who are doing well, obviously you're never going to catch them because they're just better than you.
Yeah.
And that's how it should be. But
it's easy to use. I mean, you type !predict and then the abbreviation for the team.
Like if you're someone who doesn't necessarily want to chat with other people, but you think doing the predictions could be cool, that could be a reason for you to join our Discord maybe. Like you can just come on just for that, to keep it running. It's just like a little game. You keep a running tally of how you're doing.
If you don't know what Discord is, if you're listening and you don't know what Discord is, it's just like a chat server basically, and there's different rooms and stuff. And there's a phone app. It's free. You don't. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just where you can talk with other hockey fans.
One of the things about Discord is if you read it, it talks about it's a chat for gamers, because that's how it started. It was basically it was the gaming community. That's who it was for. So many other communities have embraced it now though for what it is, because it's so good.
Yeah.
So don't be thrown off by a chat for gamers if you're not a gamer. Obviously, it has nothing to do with gaming specific. Like our server has nothing to do with gaming. It's pure hockey.
Yeah, 100% hockey.
There's nothing really gaming related.
We even have rooms for other sports as well.
That's right. So anyway, we have an update coming out as soon as we get done here. So by the time you hear this, it'll be out. But as of right now, this morning, it's not out. So as soon as we leave here, it's going to be out. And what we've done is people have been making suggestions of how I can improve things. And
we get a lot of really good suggestions, by the way.
So one of the requests was people want to see their weekly totals for the predictions. A lot of these are around the prediction system because, like I said, this exploded out of nowhere, really.
Yeah.
So people that are starting late would like to see what their weekly predictions are so they can see how they're doing for that week, because comparing themselves to people who have been doing for a while, they're behind. So they thought it'd be kind of cool that, hey, I look at my weekly. So we added that. So you're going to be able to see what your weekly prediction is. 2 nights ago, I think it was, someone said, screw weekly, let's see what we're doing daily. Because back in the day, people used to say they were 4-2 or 0-3. Like they'd put how they did for the night.
And they still put that.
They still do, yeah. Especially when the bot is off, it starts taking over again, which is kind of weird. But like I said, the storms have been really affecting the bot lately. But so we added dailies too. So you're now also going to be able to see your daily, your weekly, and then your overall.
Yeah.
There is a weekly leaderboard now too. So it's going to show 1 to 15 for who picked based on that week. And because the sample size is so small, there's going to be a lot of ties. So I don't know how useful that's going to be. People wanted it. So we'll see about that. The thing I'm most pumped for is the smallest little update ever.
It's worth a point upgrade.
So I wanted Neil to test something for me. I don't even know what it was.
I don't know what it was either.
I wanted you to look up a player, and I don't know why I asked you to do that. But you didn't know how to spell it, or you spelled it wrong. And then I thought, can I come up with a system that will find out who you were trying to type, even if you typed it wrong?
Yeah.
So I went on Google and I was doing some stuff while you were researching for the podcast, and I came up with this fuzzy wuzzy thing, which I just wanted to say that because it's so funny, but I didn't end up using it. But anyway, I found a way to come up with, I don't know, comparing a name to, or basically comparing words to other words, and you get a ratio. And then Neil and I were playing with it, and we figured out the right ratio, I guess I will say. Like, I don't want to give out how the system works, but basically you can type a name fairly wrong and it will still kind of know who you're looking for if you're kind of right.
I think this originated from a conversation we had about how the heck do you pronounce Slater Cuckoo?
Cuckoo, yeah, cuckoo. That's right.
Because it's
how do you spell it and how do you pronounce it?
Koekkoek.
Yeah. That's I think you're right. I think that's how it came about.
Yeah.
And I remember when the player command first came out, and this is a long time ago now because this has been in the bot forever. Some people were saying, well, should we just be able to look up by last name? Or what if we don't know how to spell a name? And at that time, I didn't know how to think who you were looking for. So anyway, late last night, like this bot update's been ready to go for a couple days now. I was like, I'm going to see if I can get this in, and it's in. So if you type up someone's player name wrong, like for example, if I type Ty Seguin, just Ty Seguin, it works. If I type in Patry Bergeron, like if I just leave letters out, it works. If you use an A instead of an E or an I instead of whatever, it works. If you like, so
we went so far to test it with there's like 5 Carlsons in the league or 4 Carlsons in the league. So we did a lot of testing and problem solving.
So basically for that, it's like a super small update that is mostly irrelevant. But if you spell a player's name wrong, or if you don't know how to spell it, you don't have to Google that player now to type it in, because that kind of defeats the purpose of it. Like if you're Googling the player, you might as well just look at their stats.
Yeah, and if you spell it so badly that it's below the threshold that we've picked as far as percentage, then it just says player not found.
That's right.
So you need to be at least somewhat
you have to be
accurate.
kind of close, but yeah. And I think that's, for the most part, that's the biggest updates. There's a lot of stuff that's irrelevant to most people, but basically we're expanding the prediction system a little bit because it was so popular. Like when I first made the prediction system, I didn't want to do any more bot coding. Like I was burnt out.
Yeah, you put so many hours into
that's
it,
right.
like literal days.
And I've still been doing a couple hours a night just tweaking things, because there's been a lot of bugs to fix and stuff like that. And then people have saying, well, I really like the weekly. And then the guy a couple nights ago said, well, screw weekly, I want a daily. And the other people are like, yeah, give us daily. So I was like, okay, I'll throw that in too. And then that player thing. So
well, you wouldn't do it if you didn't like it. I don't think so.
And
you're learning new stuff all the time, so it is helping you, I guess, in a way, but it's so time consuming.
And I think the prediction system, from what I've heard, is fairly unique to our server. I don't think a lot of the other hockey servers I have actually had, and I don't mean anything bad by anyone if you're one of the people that send me messages. I've had 8 people message me and ask if I could give them our bot to run on their own server.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, guys.
It's not going to happen, because like I've told everyone the same answer basically is it's not that it's tied into our server, because it could be used on other servers. It's just there's so much that gets intertwined with everything that it's our thing kind of right now.
When you offer something like that to someone else and there's a problem, we can't offer support.
That's right.
Like that's a big thing too. Like it's I was gonna say it's our baby. It's his baby, and
it's our baby.
It ain't going nowhere. Sorry.
Yeah. So
we've actually had a few people say that's better than bots on other servers, like the Reddit hockey server.
And I'm not on any other servers.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like.
Like if I was smart, I would go on them just to see what they have, and then I'd put them on ours. But I'm just adding what I think brings more value to our server, I guess, or what people want. So it's totally feedback driven. If you have an idea, like some people have said, like when the live game rooms go up, we post the 2 teams that are playing so you can see how well they're doing.
Yeah.
Some people were saying, well, it'd be really nice to see what their last 5 games were, so we could know if they're trending upwards or downwards.
Okay.
That's a good idea. I haven't got it in yet, but it's definitely something I'm going to look into. So like things like that are a good idea.
I have feedback.
You have feedback?
My feedback requires an enormous amount of time on your end.
Oh no.
Trivia.
We could probably do it.
Exclamation trivia, and then team name, and then you get a question on the team, and then you
actually
answer it somehow.
The hardest part about that would be making the questions.
Exactly. That's the most time consuming part, is making so many questions that you wouldn't get the same question every 4th time you did it. Whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the hard part, but it'll be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's basically the Discord in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's it. This podcast went pretty well for.
It was all right. We were down a man. We had other things planned that we couldn't do.
Yeah, we had some other things planned, but I really appreciate you guys watching or listening, depending on what you're doing. I know not everyone watches this; they just listen.
I love the people who listen. I think that's awesome. That was one of the things when we started the podcast that I was pushing for hard. Yeah. You remember, like we had an episode where we stopped, but the people who were listening, it kept going, and we actually had a contest giveaway.
Exactly.
And we gave a sweater away as a prize that the people on YouTube didn't even know about.
Yeah.
Like we didn't say, make sure you tune into the audio version so you can get in on this. They didn't know. We didn't announce it until it was done. So the people who are listening through like an actual podcast app, you guys are awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
You 2 people are definitely awesome too. But the podcast people should, if they're listening to like on iTunes or something, they should definitely go up and leave a 5-star review and say, this is awesome.
Yeah, leave a review if you guys don't mind.
Another thing I'll mention is, I don't even have a lot to do with the podcast anymore, but a lot of people are requesting the podcast be on Spotify.
Oh yeah, and SoundCloud, I think too.
I looked into Spotify. Spotify is very hard to get on.
Yeah.
It's not like Apple or Google. Like Apple and Google, they do have like a bar you have to reach. Like you can't just be any person and get a podcast on. They do review. Spotify wants like legit, like high
credentials.
They look into like how many views you have and whatever. They don't want like average or like up and comers. They want like a lot of the companies, people who are making money like professionally and selling advertising. Those are the type of people that are on Spotify. So basically, when you apply for Spotify, they even tell you right on it's a very high threshold, and chances are you're not going to get approved.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
SoundCloud is another one that people have requested. I've looked into that a little bit. It seems pretty easy to get on, but I just haven't had time to go through this application process. Basically,
I will say the more people that start listening through iTunes or Google Play or any of those podcatcher apps, those increase the views from Podbean, which is the host.
Yep.
And the more views you get through that and the more feedback you get through that and stuff, that actually increases the chances that Spotify will take you on.
Exactly.
So if you are someone who would like to see it on Spotify or have it on Spotify and you just mainly watch through YouTube, also download the app, one of the podcatching apps, and download our podcast through that, because it will long-term help, because it's more analytics for the Spotify people to see.
Exactly, yeah. And if you only listen, do the opposite and go on YouTube and just, I don't know, watch for 5 minutes or something like that. Right. And yeah,
just help us out wherever you can. Just
a little tip. Here's a little tip, a little view for you.
So it was good to have you in Studio B again.
Yes, we're in Studio B down in your basement. Good memories down here of the first podcast, first four, I think, maybe first four podcasts. I think we had Travis on the fourth podcast, didn't we?
We had Brent here.
Brent here was on the second one.
We've had all kinds of people here.
We need to get you over to PEI for a podcast in Studio A.
I think next time we meet up, it'll probably be in PEI.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Hard to travel during the winter and stuff here, so might not be for a little bit, but
Big 50 coming next week.
Big 50 next week.
Excited for that.
I don't know what I'm gonna do.
You got to do something big.
Like what?
I don't know. I'm not gonna tell you on the podcast.
Do you have an idea?
I'm not gonna tell you on 49 what to do for 50.
Do you have an idea?
I don't know. We'll see.
That means yes.
We'll see.
You can tell me after this. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching or listening. We really appreciate that. I hope you're having a good day. Hope you're watching lots of hockey. Hope you watched at least one game on Saturday, because there was a lot of good games. And I hope you have a good week coming up. Stay tuned for the channel for some other videos coming out, and potentially videos on more post-to-posts. Thank you once again for watching, and we'll see you next week. Adios.